Good morning, my name is Joel Walsh and I'm a future educator. I endorse equitable practice in education and I now know it all originates and stems from policy. I am to make a difference in the lives of children through more equitable practice and inclusive practice made possible by the individually customised and specific curricular policy changes I will now proceed to recommend. The current curriculum and programming policy for primary education, K-6, as you can see here and here, is based upon the 6 traditional key learning areas. Policy states that teachers must comply and be consistent with the NESA syllabus standards. 2 questions that I've been provoked to question: is this social and civic irresponsibility and in recognising what schooling can achieve, and it's limited by this policy? Ethical concerns that I've been provoked to question are: whose curriculum is it really? Who's validated and who's empowered? Why are power relations so deeply embedded in this policy? And which ideology does it reflect? Is it a collective or is it individualistic? The educational issue, what the research states and what I believe this signifies about the current educational policy. That autonomy is being stripped and withheld from primary school students, positioning them as inactive non-citizens in the learning process. Society has become too forward-thinking and tied to the preset syllabus and curricular standards that may or may not have any commonality with the child's aspirations or interests. The policy on curriculum requirements disregards agency and choice and doesn't allow the necessary flexibility to cater for kids of all diversities and levels. Some of the research and literature support that I have received. Kirby 2020 states, schools offer a very particular institutional context that emphasises children's conformity into existing social orders, in which they are expected to learn and comply with what has already been defined by adults as socially desirable to know, to do, and to be. And the Melbourne Declaration down here also reifies that. The ethical problems from the current policy, again, what the literature says and what this indicates about contemporary education practice. I believe it's very presumptuous and unjust. Aylward 2011 makes 2 very good points here and here that I'd like to read out. We need to be rethinking how adults approach education, taking into account that children's right to education needs to be addressed in tandem with their right to be listened to be respected, to learn through day-to-day experiences. And Australian education policies are couched in the discourses of knowledge economy and social capital that are focused upon creating abstract future citizens and workers who will maintain the democratic nation and ideals of Australia. To help illustrate the ethical consequences of this particular policy, I have created a hypothetical scenario. Take Sam. He is 9 years old, attends the local metro primary school. He is a sincere kid with no history of poor behaviour in school settings and has a growing fascination with farming. Sam, however, really struggles with his schoolwork across the board, not for a lack of effort, but he just isn't as academically attuned as others. Coming into year 4, he is beginning to really doubt himself and is being labelled the dumb kid. To combat the social exclusion, he stops trying and becomes completely disengaged with all schoolwork. He quickly becomes the naughty child in class, and this later compounds into his later schooling years, leading him down the wrong path, one of limited opportunities and support and guidance. At age 16, he is kicked out of school and faces the double dilemma of obtaining no knowledge or skills from his schooling experience, and second, he has not developed any career interests for him to consider. Where does he go now? By broadening the scope of the curriculum in policy for children, he, like Sam, could be afforded the agency to tailor their learning specific to their interests outside of the standard syllabus. For example, agriculture, which would empower Sam to control his education and re-engage him with the schooling experience. If we don't create a curriculum and syllabus to cater for children like Sam with unique skills and interests, then we're at risk of losing many young children to disengagement. The current policy lacks awareness of possibilities to offer alternatives of the traditional curriculum to meet children halfway. At this current point, it doesn't serve the evolving contemporary society. And 4 big key factors that really have dawned upon me since creating this and doing this task is citizenship, autonomy, ethics, and justice. I propose that we broaden the policy and scope, inclusive and tailored to all, a flexibly common curriculum that seeks to support children of all capabilities and interests, negotiated with children, for children, which would directly tie into the Melbourne Declaration of 2008, which would motivated to reach their potential. If we can learn to stand back and give children time and opportunity to find their passions, their way, to build their strengths mindfully and creatively, and to develop meaningful connections with others, success is then not about excelling over others or in any other particular domain. It is about connecting with others and everything we do. And that's a powerful element of autonomy, is the stimulating power of freedom. High schoolers are afforded a taste of choice and agency to choose their electives, so why not provide primary schoolers with a similar experience of agency? What I would suggest, more specific testing for children's capacities and interests to make them more active citizens, okay, and tailor the task to them. They may not all be as numerically and literacy dominant, and they may not be as interested in those things. My recommendation addresses ethics by providing more equality of outcomes rather than equal opportunities, because society is relentlessly unequal. By empowering primary school children with autonomy over their educational journey, this will be done by expanding curriculum policy. Activism is a core element of this and is needed to move human communities in the direction of equity, justice, and sustainability. I personally endorse for the current policy on curriculum standards to be abolished or at least refined in order to be more inclusive to those children that are not as capable or do not share the same passion with standardized forms of study like literacy and numeracy. I advocate for child curiosity in the educational sphere. By broadening the curricular requirement options, it provides a much larger scope for continual participation in school that caters for children across all diversities. There is now a need more than ever in a changing world for children to be seen as citizens with agency. It could be seen as unjust to continue regulating their educational experience through constraining policies. I argue for, propagate, and agitate the implementation of a new educational policy on curriculum and syllabus. The upgraded policy will provide students of all capabilities the agency to direct their learning and the right to be supplied with an engaging learning practice in primary education. In summary, educators have a privileged function in society, or can have, but it is totally dependent on the policies that lay the foundation for fair and equitable practice. A privilege that must promote ethical practice in educational institutions, whereby the teacher can and must advocate for what is right for the child and not what is expected by society's standards. In summary, my policy suggestion can provide the supportive resources to promote autonomy, maintain an inclusive and democratic classroom dynamic, emphasize and demonstrate just and ethical behaviour, and these are aspirational standards for teachers that are enhanced by modifying the policy in the way that I have suggested. These are my references, and thank you for your time. It's been a great unit.